All right guys, so I'm here to talk to you today about my absolute favorite flipping baits. Flipping for bass is by far one of my favorite ways to catch them from the beginning of season to end. And so I'm just going to run you through a few of my favorites when I use them in different applications, and we can see what they look like underwater. All right, we'll start off today with actually this bait that I have tied up right now. And this is just a Craw Tube. A lot of companies make Craw Tubes. This one just happens to be from a Minnesota company called Juice Baits. But there's a few different reasons why I love throwing a Craw Tube, especially around cover like what we have today. This is actually about the perfect scenario for a Craw Tube, I feel like, and that's around pencil reeds or bulrushes. And there's a few different reasons really why I love to throw a Craw Tube. Number one, it doesn't have a ton of appendages. It's pretty streamlined when you look at it, but still enough tentacles to kind of get the fish's attention. Another reason why I love it is that it's actually hollow, and that does a few different things. Number one, it will stand the bait up because air can be trapped in it. And so I really like that when it's sitting on the bottom, those appendages are kind of going crazy up in the water column, and I really like that. So I really like this when flipping deep or shallow. I can utilize it in a lot of different situations, but this is definitely a go-to for me. All right, so my next favorite has to be some sort of beaver style bait, and there's a lot of different beaver style baits out here. And here's a couple that I've become fond of. Number one is this little 13 Invader. Again, pretty streamlined. I like to keep most of these streamlined, especially when I'm around cover. I won't use this in the thickest of cover, but yet around enough cover where I need to try to get in and out with minimal damage, if you will. And so I really like this 13 Invader. And then one of my favorites that I've been using for years upon end is a little Berkley Pit Boss. And again, super small profile, but these little 4 appendages do a lot of flapping in the water, and I really like that. I'm always trying to find a bait that will make as much motion and draw attention to it as much as possible, and that's exactly what this little Pit Boss does. So when it comes to fishing around less vegetation, or I feel like the fish are in a more aggressive mood and I just want to move more water with my bait, I'm gonna go towards something that has a lot more flapping action, just like this Turbo Craws. And so when I'm using this, obviously fishing around a little bit less cover, because if I'm gonna use something with a lot of appendages or lots of flapping motions, it's not gonna fish through cover as well, but I'm gonna be able to draw fish towards my bait a lot better. So I'm gonna use it in applications where maybe the fish can see a little bit further within the vegetation, so it's in a less thick of an environment. But I really do like something that flaps. I love drawing attention to my bait, just because I feel like I can get a lot more bites. These Turbo Craws, obviously super durable with the Elastec, and I really like that because a lot of times when you're fishing around less thick of cover, there's a lot more bluegills and a lot more life around, and they're always nipping at these little craws, and so I really love something that can hold up against that. So next on my radar is a brush hog. And so any type of wood, I'm going to throw this around. Again, super streamlined bait, you know, pretty thin profile, but it does have a lot of action in the water. And that's kind of what I'm looking for when I'm throwing around wood, because I'm able to get it in and out of the cover really well, but it also allows, again, the bait to draw attention to itself. And I'm not as worried about this getting hung up around wood and that kind of stuff, whereas it could possibly get hung up in weeds where I'm kind of dragging the bait along, where this slips in and out of cover well, but also these appendages work around wood really well. All right, so last up on the list is definitely one of my favorite ways to flip, and that's actually punching. And so if you're out in the Delta on Gunnersville, or even up here in Minnesota, you know what a mat looks like. And so that's definitely one of my favorite ways to fish. I've been fortunate enough to grow up around some of the thickest matted vegetation that the Northland has to offer. And I have been able to sort through a ton of baits and figure out which ones work and which ones don't. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that, again, something with a streamlined profile, as few of appendages as possible, seems to work the best. And that's just getting in and out of the cover as well as possible. And that's probably the biggest thing when you're punching, is just being able to fish efficiently. Not necessarily the coolest looking bait, but something that you can get in and out of cover really well, because you're covering so much water when you're out there, just short flips every few feet. And so being able to get in and out of cover fairly quick seems to be the best bet. And so these are a few baits that I feel work really well. But again, something that is a little bit thinner in profile, yet I can still stick a flipping hook into it. I am using a flipping hook in that sort of cover. And so something that I can really bury that hook into that isn't always popping out. Just like this bait right here, you can see it's a lot thicker, a lot rounder. You can see that's just about a ½ inch thick there. And so I can actually just bury my flipping hook into that bait, and it sticks in there. But when I do set the hook, it can pop out and stick the fish pretty good. So I hope these tips help you guys out today. I know for me, I'm not able to see how my bait's working in thick cover. It's basically impossible to see how your bait is working under all that vegetation. And so being able to look at the underwaters helps me out a ton, and I hope it helps you out as well.
Looks like a good fish. Oh yeah, that's a big one.